Hey, I'm Danny Boyd. Today, I want to talk about this guy, Chris Columbus.
The world is round!
No. This guy.
To create a world where you believe that those characters exist,
Who kind of reminds me of James Rolfe of Cinemassacre. Maybe it's the Pennsylvania accents, or
I'm playing Home Alone games with Macaulay Culkin!
am I missing something? I don't know. Anyway, Columbus. If you don't know him by his face or his name, then you certainly know him by his work.
Is this toothbrush approved by the American Dental Association?
Give it a wave.
I saw the film in my head and I said, I have to make this film. So I called my agent and I said, I want to direct the first Harry Potter film. She said, you and 30 other people.
That's totally barbaric.
That's wizard's chess.
Among those 30 other people was Steven Spielberg, the dude who also happened to be responsible for launching Columbus's career back in the mid-'80s. But in the end, it was Columbus who got the job, the responsibility of bringing to life one of the most beloved book franchises in history, directing the first 2 movies, and helping to produce the third. So this week, I want to look at the why Columbus, in his way, was so right to take that on, thanks to his experience directing his other timeless and magical Christmas time favorite more than a decade prior. Home Alone and its sequel, Lost in New York, both directed by Columbus from screenplays by John Hughes, were massive hits in the early 90s that thematically, narratively, tonally, characterly, consciously or not, laid a surprising amount of groundwork for what Columbus would eventually build from going into Harry Potter, a franchise just beginning to be conceived of at that time. Now, I think there are a few fun but maybe more surface-level similarities between the franchises, particularly Harry Potter with Home Alone 2, that I want to kick off with. 10 things that more often tend to get compared. Beginning with number 1.
I've got presents.
If you agree that these are all basically bona fide Christmas classics.
Guys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me.
Even Harry Potter, the first film especially, has taken on this sort of unofficial identity, maybe because of when in the year they would always come out, or just the attention given to the festivities mid-film. But more concretely, and thing number 2, Harry and Kevin are heroes. 2 kids bullied at home by their peers.
Don't you know how to knock phlegm wad?
And uncles.
One more sound, and you'll wish you'd never been born, boy.
Look what you did, you little jerk!
Who, number 3, are blamed pretty much any time there's an incident or they act out against their own persecution. Provoked incidents that inevitably result in 4 consequences: Harry being sequestered to his cupboard under the stairs, and Kevin to the attic.
Now, get upstairs.
I am upstairs, dummy. 3rd floor?
Before number 5, with a little spark of magic, their lives get turned upside down and they're whisked off to magical foreign lands. Where 6, they're met with the wisdom of caring older mentors who remind them of the power of love and family.
Love, Harry. Love.
Just follow the star in your own heart.
Okay.
All the while, 7, they encounter the trope of the mistaken villain, who eventually winds up saving their lives, or at least attempting to. And number 8, they exhibit a degree of intelligence and courage and fortitude that is well beyond their years, so that 9, they can rise courageously to the occasion in somewhat inverted third act obstacle courses, where they ultimately defeat their foes.
What is this magic?
And number 10, well, the music. With both franchises, as it happens, brilliantly composed by the one, the only, John Williams. Which was never the plan, by the way. Home Alone 1 was originally scored with temp music aimed at aiding its comedic side. Columbus says the whole thing just ended up feeling like a Looney Tunes cartoon. And while the team only joked about getting Williams on board to do it, he was eventually shown a rough cut, fell in love with it, and said yes, turning a low-budget Christmas comedy into a piece of movie magic. And as far as Harry Potter goes, well, we all know how that turned out. But all that stuff is kind of circumstantial. I mean, I don't think the story alone, or even the music, is ultimately what allowed Columbus to leave his mark on and bring his signature to Harry Potter after Home Alone. A director's job is to extract more than just the characters, themes, or plots from a book or screenplay. Its tone, its style. These are sweet, sweet movies, but there's a darkness to them as well, an element of horror, a signature fascination of Columbus's that dates back to Gremlins and way, way back to childhood.
Mr. Harker, I'm glad that you've arrived safely.
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house. I must apologize.
Horror of Dracula became a legendary film for me. For some reason, they never screened, but I had heard about it. So when I finally got to see Horror of Dracula, I became obsessed with Hammer horror films, and that started the love of it.
Horror imagery shows up in the Home Alone movies, in the first Harry Potter story, and big time in the second. Not to mention the stakes in these movies. For movies for kids, they aren't just high, they're literally life and death.
I'll burn his head with a blowtorch.
You can smash his face with an iron.
Or how about my favorite, the peculiar disregard for the true severity of pain inflicted across all these films?
Dobby, put the lamp down.
Uh-oh.
All of that is embedded in the style that Columbus brings to what are otherwise ultimately family films. And then, of course, there's the cast.
For example, Oculus Reparo.
I think Columbus was a wizard in his own right, just in his ability to work with young actors. And no ordinary young actors. Or rather, extraordinarily ordinary?
When we saw Mac's screen test, we knew he was a star. I mean, you had that inkling from his little scene he did with John Candy and Uncle Buck.
No, she's usually in a bad mood in the morning.
But when he did the screen test for Kevin McAllister, he didn't look like a Hollywood sort of cutout children's character. He looked real. His ear was a little bent. He was immediately and intensely charming and funny.
And there's plenty more where that came from.
Columbus says that authenticity and relatability was everything. And years later, he says that experience of finding and working with Macaulay Culkin would go on to inform his approach to casting Sorcerer's Stone. Young actors who operated on instinct, not training, who either had it or didn't.
We weren't looking for famous kids. You know, I had, people were suggesting famous kids at the time, and I thought, no, Harry Potter has to be someone we've never seen before, or seen very little of.
Dan's screen test was amazingly charming and soulful, and he was inexperienced as an actor, but there was one thing that Dan had that you couldn't teach anyone, which was this sort of haunted quality.
If you heard your mum screaming like that, just about to be killed, you wouldn't forget in a hurry.
I just saw it in his eyes in more serious moments, and that was the moment, I think, that we all felt when we saw that screen test to hire Dan as Harry Potter.
Excellent. Even though it's sometimes a little tough to get the performances, but when you get them, it's something real, and that's great.
What if I make a fool of myself?
You won't make a fool of yourself. It's in your blood.
Regarding those performances, it doesn't hurt either that Columbus is a huge advocate for practical effects, putting his actors, regardless of age, right there in the room with everything that's going on in a scene. I've watched a lot of interviews with the cast of Harry Potter talking about their experiences over the years, working on the franchise, the ups and downs, but nothing compares to the genuine joy and gratitude and shared kinship they have when talking about working with Chris Columbus. Other directors would have been great, but if you ask me, having been in the right place, the right time, he was just the right guy for the job. I'm Danny Boyd. Thanks for watching.
The gentle April rain that stained the window panes last night is all but gone, but lingers on in scented clouds of air.